Someone you love has just stopped talking to you. No explanation, no argument, just silence. And suddenly, you're drowning in a psychological torture chamber designed to break you from the inside out. The silent treatment is not silence at all. It is the loudest form of emotional violence. This is one of the most devastating psychological weapons ever created. And the worst part, most people who use it don't even know they are wielding it. Today, we're going to tear apart this manipulation technique piece by piece. Silence as a weapon. You'll understand why it hurts so much, what it does to your brain, the different types of people who use it, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from ever being destroyed by it again. As the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once noted, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." But when that silence is weaponized, it becomes something far more sinister. The neural wound. Here's something that will disturb you. When researchers at UCLA put people in brain scanners and then had them experience social rejection, being ignored, excluded, left out, they discovered something shocking. The same regions of the brain that process physical pain light up during social rejection. Read that again. Your brain literally cannot tell the difference between being punched in the stomach and being ignored by someone you love. This is why the silent treatment feels like physical agony, because to your nervous system, it is physical agony. Pain without a bruise. The anterior cingulate cortex, the same region activated when you break a bone, fires intensely during prolonged silence from an attachment figure. Naomi Eisenberger, the neuroscientist who led this research, called it social pain. But let's be honest about what this means. Evolution designed us this way because being excluded from the tribe meant death. Ostracism was a death sentence for our ancestors. So your brain treats silence from loved ones as a survival threat. Your cortisol spikes. Your immune system weakens. Your body prepares for annihilation. And the person giving you the silent treatment, they may not understand any of this, but something even darker is happening inside your mind. Attachment terror. When someone goes silent on you, something ancient and terrifying wakes up inside your psyche. Psychologist John Bowlby called it the attachment system, a hardwired survival mechanism designed to keep you bonded to caregivers who could protect you. The propensity to make strong emotional bonds is a basic component of human nature. Here's what happens when your attachment figure suddenly disappears emotionally. Your system goes into panic mode. You become hypervigilant. You replay every conversation looking for what you did wrong. You check your phone obsessively. You can't eat. You can't sleep. Your entire nervous system becomes hijacked by the need for reconnection. This isn't weakness. This is biology, and it gets worse. Studies show that people with anxious attachment styles, those who already fear abandonment, experience the silent treatment as genuinely traumatic. Their amygdala, the brain's fear center, goes into overdrive. They may experience physical symptoms, chest pain, nausea, difficulty breathing. Meanwhile, the person giving the silent treatment often has what's called an avoidant attachment style. They learned early in life that vulnerability leads to pain. Silence becomes their armor. They disconnect not because they are evil, but because they never learned how to handle emotional intensity. But this brings us to a crucial distinction most people miss. Two silences. Not all silence is created equal, and understanding this distinction might be the most important thing you learn today. There are two completely different types of silent treatment. The first is what psychologists call stonewalling. This happens when someone becomes emotionally flooded, their heart rate exceeds 100 beats per minute, and they literally cannot process information anymore. They shut down because their system is overwhelmed, not because they want to hurt you. John Gottman, who spent decades studying relationships in his famous Love Lab, found that 85% of stonewallers are men. Their nervous systems get overwhelmed faster during conflict. They go silent because they are drowning, not because they are attacking. Retreat, not attack. But then there's the second type. This is true silent treatment, deliberate, calculated, designed to punish. This is when someone consciously withholds communication to control, manipulate, or hurt you. They know exactly what they're doing. How can you tell the difference? Stonewalling usually comes with visible distress. The person seems upset, overwhelmed, struggling. They often return when calm and try to reconnect. Deliberate silent treatment comes with coldness, with contempt, sometimes even with a slight smirk. The narcissist's silence is not empty. It is a message. And this distinction leads us to something even darker about who uses this weapon. The narcissist's tool. If you've ever been involved with a narcissist, you know the silent treatment intimately. It's one of their favorite weapons. And understanding why reveals something terrifying about how the narcissistic mind works. Control. That's what it's all about. The narcissist uses silence as a form of what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. They give you attention, then withdraw it completely, then give it back. This creates an addiction-like bond that's incredibly hard to break. The inconsistency of their attention creates a trauma bond stronger than any love. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the world's leading experts on narcissism, explains that the silent treatment serves multiple purposes for the narcissist. First, it punishes you for some perceived slight without them having to explain anything. Second, it makes you work desperately to get back in their good graces. You become the chaser. Third, and most insidiously, it conditions you to walk on eggshells. You become afraid to express any need, any boundary, anything that might trigger the silence again. The narcissist doesn't even have to use the silent treatment often. The mere threat of it, the knowledge that they could disappear emotionally at any moment, keeps you controlled. The cruelest lies are often told in silence, but narcissists aren't the only ones who weaponize silence. Passive aggression. There's another type of person who uses the silent treatment, and they are far more common than narcissists. These are people who were taught that anger is unacceptable, that expressing negative emotions makes you bad, that conflict should be avoided at all costs. So they learn to express their anger through silence. They punish you with their absence because they never learn to punish with words. This is passive-aggressive silence, and it's different from narcissistic silence in a crucial way. The passive-aggressive person often feels genuinely hurt. They're not trying to control you, they're trying to communicate without communicating. Hidden anger disguised as peace. Think about how many families teach children that expressing anger is shameful. Don't raise your voice. Nice girls don't get angry. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. So these children grow up without the skills to express frustration directly. The only tool they have is withdrawal. The irony is devastating. They use silence because they are afraid of conflict. But the silence creates more conflict, more pain, more damage than words ever could. If you recognize yourself in this pattern, if you're someone who goes silent when hurt, this isn't an attack. It's an invitation to learn new skills. Because what happens to the person on the receiving end is genuinely destructive. The victim spiral. Now let's talk about what happens inside the person receiving the silent treatment. Because it's not just pain. It's a systematic psychological breakdown. Stage 1, confusion. You don't know what you did. You replay every interaction looking for the crime you committed. You question your perception of reality. Maybe you imagine that things were fine. Maybe you're crazy. Stage 2, desperation. You try everything to break through. You apologize for things you didn't do. You promise to change things that don't need changing. You humiliate yourself begging for a response. You will do anything to end the torture of being unseen. Stage 3, self-blame. When nothing works, you conclude that you must deserve this. You internalize the message that the silent treatment is sending, that you are not worth responding to, worthless, invisible, forgotten. Stage 4, depression. Your nervous system, exhausted from the chronic stress, starts shutting down. You lose interest in things. You withdraw from other relationships. You become a ghost of yourself. The worst thing about being lied to is knowing you weren't worth the truth. And here's what's truly insidious. By the time the silent treatment ends, if it ends, you're often so grateful just to have contact again that you'll accept any terms. You've been broken down, conditioned. This is how the cycle perpetuates, but there's a way out. Breaking free. If you're currently experiencing the silent treatment, I need you to hear something important. Their silence is not about your worth. It is about their limitations. Let me say that again. Their inability to communicate is not evidence of your inadequacy. It's evidence of theirs. This doesn't mean they are evil. It means they lack the emotional skills to process conflict in a healthy way. But that's their work to do, not yours. Stop chasing, start living. Here's the first practical step. Stop pursuing. I know this feels counterintuitive. Every cell in your body is screaming at you to keep trying, keep apologizing, keep reaching out. But pursuing someone who's giving you the silent treatment does three things. It reinforces their power. It damages your self-respect. And paradoxically, it makes them less likely to talk. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Instead, live your life. Not as a manipulation tactic, not to show them, but because your life has value independent of their attention. Go see friends. Pursue your interests. Do things that remind you of who you are beyond this relationship. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to reclaim yourself. But this is just the first step. What comes next is even more important. Boundaries speak. When the silence finally breaks, and it usually does, what happens next determines whether you'll be trapped in this cycle forever or whether you'll break free. Boundaries. Most people are so relieved when communication resumes that they sweep everything under the rug. They're just happy the nightmare is over. They never address what happened, and that guarantees it will happen again. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. When the person starts talking again, you need to have a calm, clear conversation, not an attack. Not an accusation, a statement of fact and a boundary. Speak your truth clearly. Something like, when you stop talking to me without explanation, I feel abandoned and anxious. I understand you might need space sometimes, and I can respect that, but I need you to tell me that you need space. Going completely silent is not something I can accept in a relationship. Notice what this doesn't include. It doesn't include demands. It doesn't include ultimatums delivered in anger. It's simply a clear statement of what you need to feel safe. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Then watch what happens. Do they take responsibility? Do they apologize? Do they commit to finding other ways to handle conflict? Or do they deflect, blame you, minimize your experience? Their response tells you everything you need to know about whether this relationship can survive. But there's one more thing you need to understand. Healing wounds. Even after you've addressed the immediate situation, there's deeper work to do. Because the silent treatment leaves wounds that don't heal on their own. Those wounds become part of you. People who have experienced repeated silent treatment often develop hypervigilance in relationships. They're constantly scanning for signs that their partner is withdrawing. They interpret normal needs for space as abandonment. They become controlling, clingy, or preemptively distant. All attempts to avoid the agony of silence. Trauma doesn't just affect your past, it rewires your future. This is why therapy can be so valuable. A skilled therapist can help you process the experiences, recognize the patterns you've developed, and build healthier attachment strategies. Heal the wounds, transform. But even without therapy, there's work you can do. Start by naming what happened. The silent treatment is a form of emotional abuse. I know that word feels strong, but when someone deliberately withholds affection, communication, and acknowledgement to control or punish you, that's abuse. Naming the wound is the first step to healing it. Then practice self-compassion. You responded to the silent treatment the way any nervous system would respond to perceived abandonment. Your pain was valid. Your attempts to reconnect were natural. You're not broken. You're human. And this brings us to the most important realization of all. Your voice matters. Here's what I want you to take from everything we've discussed today. You matter. Your need for connection is not weakness. Your pain when ignored is not overreaction. Your desire for communication is not demanding. These are fundamental human needs. And anyone who uses your needs against you, who punishes you with silence for wanting to be seen and heard, is revealing something about their limitations, not your worth. You are worthy of relationships where your voice is welcomed, not weaponized. Some relationships can heal from patterns of silent treatment. When both people are committed, when the person who uses silence is willing to learn new skills, when there's genuine love underneath the dysfunction, change is possible. Change takes two people, but some relationships cannot be healed. And it's not your job to sacrifice yourself waiting to find out which kind you're in. The only people who get upset when you set boundaries are those who benefited from you having none. If you've been experiencing the silent treatment, you now understand what's happening in your brain, why it hurts so much, and what you can do about it. Use this knowledge, not to fight, not to win, but to protect the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. The silent treatment works because we are fundamentally social beings. Our brains are wired for connection, and silence from those we love triggers primal survival fears. Understanding this doesn't make you immune to the pain, but it gives you power. You now know what's happening neurologically when someone goes silent. You understand the difference between overwhelmed stonewalling and calculated manipulation. You know why certain people use this weapon and what it does to those on the receiving end. Most importantly, you know that you can respond differently. Awareness changes everything. You don't have to chase. You don't have to beg. You don't have to accept silence as a normal part of love. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes. Real love speaks, even when it's hard, even when it's angry, even when it's hurt. Real love shows up. If you found yourself in this video, know that understanding is the first step to transformation. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe for more. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime. See you in the next video.